Hello everyone, welcome to class 10 CBSE History. Today we'll be learning the first lesson, the rise of nationalism in Europe. How did nationalism start in Europe? So now we go and study the in each territory what happened, and it all began in France. So one more thing, what I've done is I have at the beginning of each chapter given this triangle. This is a great formula to remember. Many people say, I don't remember what's happening in history, I don't remember dates, I don't remember what's happening. There's so many facts, there's so many things happening. But you don't have to remember everything. This all should come very naturally because you have to understand the underlying theme of the whole thing. I already explained the theme to you out here. And you just make this triangle and you'll understand this very quickly. If you revise also, it's very fast. After you've read the chapter, after you've understood the chapter, just see the first part or the first page of this chapter and you will understand, can revise so fast. What happened in example here, I explain to you. What happened in the painting? Oppression of the people by the monarchs. They wanted freedom. What was the event? The reason was that was the discontent. What was the event? The revolt of the people. They revolted. They crushed monarchy. What was the outcome? Freedom, liberty, crushing of autocracy or absolute institutions, and the emergence of nation states. But Frederick Suroyu's painting is done. You understood what happened, 1848. That dates you should remember, it's better. But if you cannot remember dates or you say it's not possible, I think you should understand what's happening and you explain very well. That is very good. So at the beginning of each chapter or topic, I have given this triangle. You can revise quickly in minutes. But I think is one technique that people should follow is they should try to recall. That's when you remember history. You recall history. Some people are naturals when they understand. Like when I see history, I feel like it's a simulation game. What's happening? Wow, it's like one monarch is there, and then there's people who oppress. To understand the social aspect of it, the economic aspect of it, the political aspect of it, what's happening, it develops interest. But if you find it difficult to remember something or understand this, then you should try to recall it. You should close the book and try to say from memory what's happening. You do this 4-5 times. Just take the first page of this and with this triangle in the same reason, event, and outcome, you say this again and again and again, and you will understand and be a master at what you're studying. And remember, always do the last year's questions. You should know that by heart. So let's start and go to what happened in France. Where did all this begin? So there, at this point of time, there were kings, there were monarchs ruling over vast empires, different group of peoples, and they were frustrated. And there were revolts around the world, but they were all crushed. And the first revolt that was successful was in France. It was in the year 1789. You can call this the 18th century. Like I said, 18th century means the years 1700 to 1800. The first clear expression of nationalism was in 1789, when the people of France revolted against the emperor or the king of France and formed a nation state of France. So the French Revolution, 1789, the storming of Bastille. Bastille was a prison where they had all the political prisoners and they had all the high profile prisoners of France were kept in Bastille. And breaking Bastille meant breaking the authority of the emperor. The first clear expression of nationalism came in 1789. And when they overthrew the monarch, the people felt free and they said that it is a destiny of the people of France to spread freedom and the idea of a nation to the other countries of Europe. France is to lead this change. France is to lead the revolution against absolute rule or despotism. Despotism means absolute rule, like an absolutist or absolute power. So till 1789, there were full-fledged monarchs or kings, absolute monarchs. And the French Revolution in 1789 changed it in France. This was due to a political change and constitutional change. So when we learn history in this chapter, there are three changes that are very important. And from these three angles, we have to learn this. So when we learn the change of events in this chapter, there are three aspects that we learn it from. Number one is the political aspect. And what is the change in ruler that is happening? What is happening at the ruling part, the top? Is the king being replaced by the monarchs, or the king is being replaced by the people? Or which king is defeating whom? And who is sitting on the throne? The second aspect is the social aspect. What is happening in the mass of people? There are different masses of people in socially. There could be rich people, the middle class, the not rich people, that's the lower classes. What is happening amongst them? What's the emotion amongst them? The social aspect. And another aspect is the economic aspect. What happened? Who has the money? Money is a resource. Who has the money? First, the money was with the kings and the higher ups. Then the money started populating to the middle classes, the lower people, which gave them more power or more resource. And they said, even I have the money to go and revolt. I have the money that I can stay hungry for one more day. I have for months. Any activity in this world requires money. And that's the economic aspect. So we learn what happens that these three aspects change: political, social, and economic. So what happened in France was the people, there's a social aspect, revolted against the monarchs, the political aspects. And they replaced the monarchy or the king with a body of French citizens. So who's the new ruler? The body of French citizens. And what were the steps taken by the French revolutionaries to ensure that the people remained united? Like I said, or we saw, that a nation is a group of people who have common or collective identity. And this has to be repeated and known again and again. People having collective identity. It has to be in the psyche of the people that they have a collective identity. So what did the French revolutionaries or the body of French citizens that ruled France after the French Revolution do to ensure that the people felt united? This is a very important question. It comes in exam. You should know all the points by heart. The first thing is they said the concept of la patrie, of the fatherland, and le citoyen, the citizen. These are French words, and the question comes in the exam: what is la patrie and le citoyen mean? So 1 mark question. La patrie in French means fatherland, like how we say in India, dharti ma, that's motherland, or you can say Bharat ma, that's mother. In the same way, the French had the concept of fatherland. That is la patrie, that is fatherland. And they had le citoyen, that is citizen. That is, each person is a member of the French nation. So this formed a united community. Then you had a common flag that was there. It was a tricolor in France. We have a tricolor in India also. It was chosen, and the royal standard, that was the king's flag, was replaced. There was a new flag. It was red, white, and blue, that was adopted in France, the French nation, as a flag. The States General, that was the governing body in France. This formed elected representatives by the people, like a democracy, and was renamed to the name National Assembly. You had an elected government. You had a centralized admin system. That means that laws were made by the parliament. Each region did not have its own laws. And everyone, the social aspect. So this was the top aspect, that on the top, the political change. That is, the Estates General was replaced and renamed the National Assembly. It formed by elective representatives, and the ruler was a body of French citizens. The flag that they adopted was a tricolor. That's a new French flag. Now what? And also they had a centralized admin system. Now what was the social aspect here? The people enjoyed equal rights under the constitution. They had uniform laws for all citizens. They felt together because they had new hymns composed and oaths taken. The martyrs were commemorated. And a common language was French, as it was spoken in France, was propagated. Regional dialects were discouraged. That is, if it was spoken in North France, it was discouraged. And French, as it was spoken in Paris, was encouraged. In the economic aspect, you had internal custom duties were abolished. This meant that if you had to go from part A of France, a region of France, to another region of France, there would be custom duties, like we had octroi in India. They were abolished because they formed a hindrance to trade. A person had to pay taxes at the border. Like in India, if you go from Maharashtra to Gujarat, at the border there would have been an octroi or a tax that would be paid. And each place had its own system of taxation, had its own system of measurements. And this was a big hindrance to trade and commerce. So internal customs duties were abolished, that we are one nation, one tax, that's what they say. And a uniform system of weights and measures were adopted. So these were changes that were brought about that the people felt as one. The political change, the economic change, and the social change. You can call it PES. The political change, the economic change, the social change. This is a very important question. You should know all the points by heart. The political change was the ruler was a body of French citizens and not the monarch. The representatives were elected to parliament. The name of the parliament was changed from Estate General to the National Assembly. A new French flag was adopted, and a centralized system of administration was there. The rules made by the parliament would be applied everywhere. The administration of the parliament was supreme. Now the social changes. The people fell together because of the concept of the fatherland and citizen, the citizen. Le patrie, the fatherland, and le citoyen, the citizen. There were hymns sung, hymns like how we have Bande Mataram, etc., that caused people to come together. There were oaths that were taken by people. The heroes of the movement were commemorated or they were awarded. Like how in India we have our freedom fighters who are commemorated and said that they fought for our struggles. These were the social changes, and a common language was spoken or encouraged amongst all the people. This was a social change. And what was the economic change? Sorry, there were more social changes. Equal rights by the constitution and uniform laws of all citizens. What was the economic change? The internal customs duties were abolished and a uniform system of weights and measures were adopted. So these were the changes that the French revolutionaries took so that the people could have a common collective identity to form a nation. So what are the questions that can be asked? This has been repeated so many times. The question from this part, so very important. That is why we are emphasizing so much on it. What was the status of France as a state before 1789? The answer is here. France was a full-fledged territorial state ruled by an absolute monarch. That is, it was ruled by a monarch who was absolute and a territorial state, so not a nation state. Which political and constitutional changes came in the wake of the French Revolution? So you can write that the Estate General was elected by the body of active citizens and renamed the National Assembly. Then you can say you had the political changes. The body of French citizens were elected. A body of active citizens were elected to the French National Assembly. The two changes. Constitutional, the centralized administrative system. The changes in constitution were an equal rights under the constitution and uniform laws for all citizens. So each point contains 1 mark in a 3-mark answer, short answer question. And the long answer question, each mark contains 1 point, that is 5 marks. So in this one, in the first question, the first one, what is the status of France as a state before 1789? That would be 1 mark. And which two political and constitutional changes came in the wake of the French Revolution? 2 marks. So describe, next question, describe any 3 steps taken by the French revolutionaries to create a sense of collective identity among the French people. So you have 3 marks, you should repeat 1, 2, 3 papers. You should know this by heart. You can give any 3 points behind. I would suggest that you give these ones, that is Le Patrie and Le Citoyen. Then the Estates General was elected by a body of active citizens and renamed National Assembly. Administrative changes. These are the important ones. These are the ones that will have better impact. You can give any 5 points or any 3 points as it is. Next question is a long answer. The first clear expression of nationalism came with the French Revolution in 1789. Explain the meaning of nationalism and throw light on the statement. So, like I said, the first clear expression of nationalism was in France. Before, there were small revolts, but nothing effective came about. The ruler remained. But here, the ruler was overthrown, and French citizens, body of French citizens, assumed or took over as rulers. In France, in Europe, was the first clear expression of nationalism. So then you have to write, explain the meaning of nationalism and throw light on statement. You write that this whole slide basically comes into there, and you can write that nationalism means is collective identity. Like we had learned what Mr. Renon had written. It means a collective identity of people who feel together, have shared history, who will do great things in the present and the future, all those points. Constant plebiscite, guaranteed liberty, etc. And then you have to answer what changes or steps taken by the French revolutionaries. We will have an entire series on the answers that are to be written. Right now, we are just focusing on learning the concept of this chapter, the idea, and the questions that can be asked. We will have an entire series on the questions and how to answer them, the detailed answers I will provide. Right now, we just focus on the idea and learning about it. The reason for showing the questions here is that we know that they are the important points and you have to focus on it and know it by heart. Fourth question, describe any 5 measures introduced by the French revolutionaries to create a sense of collective identity amongst the French people. Fifth question, what steps did the French revolutionaries take to create a sense of collective identity among the French people? You have to write any of these 5 points here. Steps taken by the French revolutionaries. Amber, close your book. So if you're having difficulty in remembering this, remember one thing. Close your book and learn how to recall it. Recall it so many times that you remember. 5 points, 5 points you can remember easily. Recall it. The questions are there, the important slides. Just close your book and you can ask your friend to take up, or your mother to take up if you want, or your father to take up, or a family member to take up, and just say it out of memory. You say it 5 to 10 times, you'll know it by heart. That is what it's all about.